You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. There is something about going away somewhere to feel something different, to discover something new that is so important for each and every one of us. And part of it is because we all need that sense of opening our eyes up to something new. Our brains love novelty. We need novelty. I feel like the universe can bring you really synchronous moments when you're out traveling. Hello there, and thank you so much for tuning in today for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia. I am a self-care specialist as well as a certified astrologer, and every week I come here to share a little bit from within. My goal is to help others with that sense of self-love and self-care because so many of us struggle with this for so many different reasons, right? It could be because we are in our own way. We are kind of in a series of maybe some bad habits, but we're doing the best that we can, and we don't know how to break out of that mold. And sometimes it's just a matter of thinking of things a little bit differently, or from just having that piece of encouragement, that little spark of fire that lights up something within you that gives you that push over the hump. Sometimes that's what I'm here to do. Other times it's just to commiserate with you and to share a little bit of something hard that I'm working through, and maybe that just helps you not feel so alone. So thank you for being here today. And if you are new around here, welcome. I hope that you have a moment to subscribe so that you can tune in each and every week, or even to visit our website, abitfromwithin.com. where I have so many different blogs. Most of them are companions to past episodes, as well as I offer a bunch of different products on my website, like astrology readings, both smaller ones and deep, longer ones. I've got guided meditations on there and all kinds of information on how to work with me a little bit more for yoga, guided meditations, that kind of thing. This week, I am so excited to be back here in my normal podcasting space. I always record in my little closet at home. But last week, I took the show on the road, so to speak, and was able to record last week's podcast episode in St. Augustine, Florida, and it was featuring my sister, who is actually a Floridian now. She moved to Florida last year, and this was the first time I was able to go down and visit her, see her home she actually lives in just outside of Orlando, but I had been dying for the beach. So she made sure that we were able to take a little day trip. Actually, it was an overnight trip over to St. Augustine. We'd both never been there before. And we stayed at this really beautiful hotel that was right on the ocean. And, for me, I've never traveled anywhere during the holiday season. And it's always been something that's been on my bucket list because there's something extra magical about seeing things decorated for the holidays. And I tell you what, it did not disappoint. We were actually able to spend a day at Disney World, and it was amazing to see it all decorated for Christmas. But even just going to St. Augustine, the hotel that we stayed at had like all of the palm trees decorated with lights and Christmas trees, and it was so beautiful. And St. Augustine, like the actual city, is known for their light displays. So at night, all of the entire row of houses and shops that are along the pier or water or whatever, they are all lit up, and it's so cool. It was really, really fun to see and explore. I will say, it was a little stressful finding parking down there, but I guess that was just part of the adventure. And the whole trip was such a whirlwind because I had not planned on going down there. It was a very last minute thing. It kind of just came out of the blue. I had a airline credit that was from a job that I had to have rescheduled because of COVID that I was able to use, and it was getting ready to expire this month. And so I wanted to use it, and I felt like I needed to use it. So I was able to put that towards my trip. So I found a really great flight down there. It was nonstop. And honestly, I have been out of the practice of flying. And earlier this year, back in, I think it was March, I flew down to Dallas, and I was having a ton of airport anxiety. So I actually recorded, I feel like there's definitely a podcast episode, but I know for sure 100% there's a blog post that I did back then on like a bunch of different ideas to help you manage your airport anxiety, because I was so terrified to fly. And so when this trip came up, I was having a lot of those same fears. In fact, I left the Friday after Thanksgiving, and the entire drive home from my parents' house on Thanksgiving, I like cried in the car to Dave because I was just feeling so much anxiety about flying. And that was part of the reason that I wanted to go, because I had never felt like extreme phobia over flying. It's definitely something that has been new for me, something that I think started in like probably over the course of the pandemic, because I hadn't actually flown. I took a trip anywhere via plane since like I took a trip in 2018, and then I hadn't at all until 2021. And that was the same plane ride that, if you're familiar with my story at all, my boyfriend, on that plane ride, we were flying to Chicago. He had a very strong case of either SVT, or it might have been NSVT. His heart rate spiked very, very high. And we later found out that he likely had myocarditis when that happened. And so that was just a very scary plane ride, because I had been struggling with major panic at that time. I had been about a year and a half into a really serious time battling and finding my strength with panic attacks and anxiety. And so I was already heightened and nervous, especially being out of practice, because practice helps everything. When you are battling something that is, causes you anxiety, the best thing you can do is practice it, as scary as that is. And so I was out of the practice of flying, and then that happened, and it added an even more layer of anxiety to the entire experience. And so all of that is just to say that this trip was good for me to use the credit, get out of town, go visit the beach, and to be able to practice, face my fears. And I flew earlier this year, like I said, in March, and I've had a great flight out this time. There was a little bit of drama with I feel like every time I go on a plane, I do try to say a prayer, like, let this trip just be super boring. Let getting through security be boring. Let being like boarding the plane be boring. Let flying be boring. Let getting off the plane. Please let my trip, the airfare part, be boring. And so got through security. It was great. Got on the plane, sat down. I'm like, okay. I was sitting next to a really sweet couple. We're like, okay, let's do this. We were on time. Everything felt great. We're sitting there and sitting there and sitting there. And all of a sudden, the pilot comes on board, and he's like, hey, everyone, like, so excited to get going. But during our inspection around the plane, we noticed that there was some damage to like the tail, something like essentially like the bumper. And they're like, so maintenance has to come out and fix that before we can leave. They think it'll be an hour, so we'll keep you posted. We might try to find another plane to fly out, or we'll see what happens with this. So hold on for a little bit. So we kind of all sat there, and it was like, oh gosh, what's this going to be like? And then eventually they came back on, and they told us we were going to have to deboard the plane while they get it fixed, because it needs another inspection, and you can't have anybody on the plane when that happens. So we all get out and kind of disperse, and they're like, well, we'll keep you posted. And so they ended up finding a new plane for us. And so we got going about an hour and a half late, which did kind of suck, because it was a late afternoon flight out of Denver to Florida. So you're already traveling over 2 time zones. I was supposed to get in at like 9:30. And so we didn't end up landing until, I think it was like 11:15 or 11:30 p.m. It was definitely a later night than we anticipated, but that was okay. And besides that little hiccup, it was very boring, both there and back, which was lovely. And it really helped me to remember that like I'm not actually scared of flying. Yes, I have anxiety, and yes, airports definitely foster a sense of anxiety that is very real. But I just had to like remind myself, like, I'm actually very comfortable on a plane. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm remembering how it feels with more practice. And so my thing that I kind of realized, I know that kind of sounds silly, but I'm like, I'm not afraid of flying. I am scared of a lot of things. I am very scared of like snakes, like that. I am phobic about snakes. I am phobic about deep water. Like I could never take a cruise. I definitely have one of those fears when you see those pictures that just like go down into the ocean and there's like no ending in sight. That scares me. But actually flying, it is anxiety producing a little bit. It's definitely not the most comfortable feeling in the whole world, but I just had to keep remembering, I'm like, I'm not actually scared of this. And so I need to remember how I really feel. And, you know, as it's possible, take more trips to practice and help myself remember that. So, of course, there is more that I would love to share just about, you know, I guess kind of the revelations that I had while I was out in Florida and kind of, I guess, kind of where I'm at as we come towards the end of the year. But first, before I dive into all of that, let's talk about what is happening this week astrologically in our Astro Check-in. This week on December 7th is our last full moon of the year. It is the cold moon, and it is going to be the moment when the moon is brightest during like the longest night of the year. Astrologically, it's an interesting one because the moon is actually going to be exactly in line with Mars. In fact, the moon is actually going to eclipse Mars because it's closer to the Earth. So as if you were looking at Mars, you can actually see the moon like pass over Mars, which is kind of cool. But astrologically, that means that the moon and Mars are going to be in the same sign of Gemini, and they're going to be kind of amplifying each other. In astrology, the moon really represents our inner needs and our intuition, our feminine side to ourself. It can also represent the stuff that we kind of keep under the surface. And Mars is this planet of action. It's incredibly got a lot of masculine energy. It is motivation and passion and drive and even sometimes like our plan of attack or a plan of action. And so having these two things on the same page, it might mean that your emotions are a little bit more charged than normal. It might mean like sometimes during full moons, people say they always start crying more around full moons. But this time you might find yourself like crying more like angry tears or getting really fed up and things just kind of bubbling over the surface a lot faster. And because this is happening in the sign of Gemini, there's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. The first is you may not want to be very careful about what is coming out of your mouth. You might just feel like F it, I'm going to say whatever I want, like I've had it, and you kind of bubble over and you might say a bunch of things that you kind of mean, but maybe you don't, in hindsight, you might not mean them how you said it. So be careful with your words. The second thing I will say, I guess that's the only like disclaimer. The second thing I will say is that Gemini is a wonderful sign. It is ruled by Mercury. It is very quick and speedy and curious and intelligent. And so because of this, having Mars and the moon in Gemini, full moons are representing aha moments. They're representing illumination. They're representing being able to see the big picture and to even have the capacity and energy to begin to let things go because you can see things clearly. Because of this, we can really lean into the vibration of sorting things out. And I think this is so exciting for the last full moon of the year because so often we wait until after Christmas for the short week, the short 6 days between Christmas and New Year's to try to work through and figure out everything that we want to let go of in 2023 and everything we're going to intend for in 2023. Leave behind in 2022 and everything we want to get in 2023. Now, if you know my work at all, you know that you're not going to be surprised to hear this reminder. 1, you do not need a brand new year to set intentions. Personally, I like to take every opportunity of a new moon to really begin to set new intentions. You could do it every single week. You could do it in the middle of any day. Like, you do not need a specific date to start over. But that said, there is something very magical about having that clean slate of a new year or a new month or a new week. There is something to that. So I understand the desire for that. So if you can start during this full moon doing that mental work, sorting through what has been working for you and what has not been working for you. I could really go down the rabbit hole of this conversation because it's one I am so passionate about. It is so, so easy for us to lean into the places where we feel like obligatory expectations as to what we should be putting our energy into or who we should be. For example, a lot of people struggle with their body image. And so it's such an easy thing to say, well, I know the society thinks that I should be thinner and I have all of these self-worth issues with my body and I'm struggling with my body image. And so that is going to be the thing that I should be working on right now. New year, new me, I'm going to get to the gym, I'm going to lose weight. And it can be something that, yes, it is true inside of you. You do wish you could put energy into your body, but that motivation maybe isn't from a place of health or a place of like freedom of movement or mobility or whatever. It's from a feeling of I'm not good enough as I am. And that's not just towards our bodies. We often set intentions from this place of where do I feel insecure? That's the place I should transform. And I don't want to discourage anyone from feeling as though they can tackle the places that they want more confidence, or if you want more strength or you want more breakthrough. But you have to be very careful about this. And this is where I want you to lean in this full moon. What really matters to you? What kind of life do you want to live? And as you shine this light, it's like the full moon is our flashlight kind of shining down onto our lives right now. Start to sort through what makes sense to focus on right now, what's coming up for you, and what has been coming up for you that you're just really ready to cut ties with and let go of. And maybe you can start to let go a little bit and have a little bit of like a fuck it moment with some of that insecurity. So that way, as you start to come and really lean into some new moon vibes right before the new year and set some really big new intentions, manifestation, all of that you can do so from that fresh place, from a place of deep clarity and not from a sense of obligation around the places that you don't feel like you're good enough. Because here's the thing, you absolutely are good enough, exactly as you are. You don't need to change. You can change if you want to. You can absolutely grow in the places that you'd like to grow and see improvement. But the more that you feel like you're doing something because you're not good enough, the more that unhealed wound is just going to stay there, waiting for the right way to have that place healed. And, you can kind of think of it as like the wound is like a hole. And let's say that hole was part of the earth, right? So it's like the foundation is earth and you have this hole. It would be like, just trying to gloss over it, filling it with, something foreign, something like stuffing or something, right? It's like that's not going to fill the hole. That's just putting a Band-Aid over it or trying to build a bridge over it. It doesn't change the fact that the hole is still there. It's like, our work is that we have to start actually addressing the pain of that wound, and how can we start creating a sense of healing with that. You probably have to start with, what is it actually made of, and start there. So all of that is just to say, I think this is going to be a really excellent time to do so. And honestly, you may not feel like you have all of the answers right now, and that's a really scary place to be. It's something that I've been sitting with myself a lot, feeling like I do not have answers and desperately wanting them. And I know I'm not alone in this, because the other thing we have going on that I haven't mentioned yet is that the planet Mars, that is a big part of this equation, has also been in retrograde for the past, I think it went retrograde end of October. So the entire month of November, it's going to be retrograde the entire month of December into the beginning of January. And then it's going to, so basically it started, the planets move through the zodiac. So it traveled direct on its path all the way through Gemini. Right at the end of Gemini, it said, time for me to go retrograde. It's moving all the way back to the beginning of Gemini again. And when it starts to move back forward again for another 2 years of direct movement, it's going to have to cross all the way back through Gemini again. And so you have to think, all of our sense of motivation, energy, directness, passion, all of that is in this sign that is all over the place. Gemini is all over the place, and it's not a bad thing. It's very spontaneous. It's able to cover a lot of different subjects. It stays on the surface in a positive way. It's very curious, very intelligent. So you might feel like you are just all over the place. In fact, that's how I've been feeling lately, is just, I feel like I can just not get myself organized for all kinds of reasons. I feel like I am getting stuff done, but I'm having trouble just organizing my day. I feel like I don't have a strong sense of purpose or foundation right now. And I know that other people have been feeling that too. It just feels like some of that general motivation you feel each and every day feels like it's kind of on a backwards track right now. And that's because it is. And so just hang in there. Like, you may not feel like you have all of the answers right now, but there are things that you are very clear about. And maybe it's the places where we're lacking that motivation, where we are a little bit lost, that those are the places we want to put some of our energy and focus into. And we don't need to have all the answers in order to set intentions, or in order to know that those are the places where we want to put our energy. We do not have to be perfect. Okay, I want you to remember that. So even during all these moments, even during full moons and the new year and Christmas and everything going on where there's some kinds of feelings of external pressure, you have the reminder from me that you do not have to be perfect. Each Christmas doesn't have to be perfect. Every day doesn't have to be perfect. Your launch into the new year does not have to be perfect. You get to decide what is good enough for you. And sometimes just showing up and doing the best that you can, that's a pretty good place to start. So whatever that is, don't compare it to past years. Don't compare it to this, unrealistic expectation of who you think you should be or how other people seem to you. Just be you. I think that's more than enough. So with all of that in mind, for this full moon, allow yourself, even if it's just 20 minutes, just to brainstorm, just to put it all down onto paper. What are you sorting through right now in your life? Where is that spotlight shining? And what are some thoughts that you have on how you can put energy into those areas, whether it's into, maybe focusing on that moving forward, or into the things that are getting in your way of being able to focus, and how can you let go of those things? How can you maybe delegate other people to take care of that stuff? How can you move into your own alignment with what matters to you? And sometimes it does take letting go. And full moons are my favorite time in the lunar cycle to really focus on letting go. In fact, for this moon in particular, I have put together a beautiful letting go ritual that you can do yourself at home. It usually takes about 20 to 60 minutes depending on how much time you have for your ritual time. And if this sounds interesting to you, if you are like, yes, I need some letting go help right now, this ritual is totally available in our Sagittarius lunar guide, which is available through patreon.com. If you've never heard of Patreon before, it's a really cool website. They basically support creators in the ability to distribute their work. So I have my own little portal on patreon.com. It's a bit from within. And there I offer my free yoga classes, guided meditations. We have a huge, huge library of over the past 2 years, just tons of guided meditations. And then every month I release to all of our Patreon members it's about a 10-page unique guide that goes over everything that's happening astrologically, self-care ideas that are specifically for the sun sign that's in place right now. So this month it's Sagittarius. And then it comes with a new moon ritual and a full moon ritual. So if you are like, yes, that is up my alley, please check out our Patreon page. We have a couple different levels of membership, which is a really cool way to support creators like me. It starts as little as $3 a month, which gets you that guide as well as ad-free episodes of the podcast. And then it kind of goes up from there. And we have an amazing community on Patreon. In fact, Patreon members, I know you're listening to this little promotion, and thank you for being such amazing members of the community. So if you are interested in joining that amazing community, check out patreon.com/abitfromwithin, and then you can actually search for plenty of different topics. And if you type in self-care guide, the latest one will pop up and you can have access to the specific full moon ritual for this month. All right, you guys, all of that being said, I think that gives you enough to think about this week. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk more about all the revelations of being on vacation and I guess the real thought of like, is the grass greener on the other side? So when I decided to book my last minute trip to Florida, it was actually very difficult. You know, there are many reasons why I have not actually scheduled a vacation for myself. And in fact, this is something that I've had to take a really hard look in the mirror at because, you know, I was lucky enough to grow up in a home where my mom prioritized us taking regular family vacations. It was so fun because it wasn't like we went to the exact same place every year or we took the same 2 weeks of the summer off and did something. It was kind of like life just kind of led us on a bunch of different adventures. And I feel like where I'm at in my life right now, I can look back and see that I totally have taken that for granted for so long, that I had an amazing mom who is so good at planning travel to make that happen. Like she would, even when I was getting older, like the summer I graduated from college, she planned a trip just for me and her to go down to San Antonio and spend a couple days together. And it was so much fun. So even like as an adult, she did that. And then when my sister graduated from high school, which was a few years after that trip, we planned like a really big family vacation to Hawaii. And so I got to do that. So that was well into my like mid-20s. And then as there stopped being reasons for us all to go, graduations were over, that kind of thing. And then my parents, they have this crazy dog situation. So they don't travel as much anymore because somebody has to be home with the dogs. And so there just hasn't been any family vacations. And so if I want to go on a vacation, I have to plan it myself. And my partner, Dave, not only has he been really sick for the last year and a half, but, he is not the kind of person that has a lot of experience with traveling and planning a lot of vacations. It's something that he would love to do. And we have done, some trips together. our first year together, we did some trips around Colorado. We did like a night away in Breckenridge. We did a night away in Basalt, and those were really fun. And then he's from upstate New York, so we did do in 2018 a really big trip back there. I got to see his hometown, spend time with his family, and then we got to drive through from New York over to Boston. We're huge Boston Celtics fans, which they're having a great season, but we got to go to TD Garden, actually see a game live there, which was incredible for us and so much fun. But that was kind of like the only big trip we've taken. And then, of course, who knows what would have happened if COVID never happened, right? We'll never know. In 2019, so the year after that, we bought the house, and there, was not, you don't take big trips when you're buying a house. Normally, we were building a new build. So like our entire year went into focusing on making our house happen. And then 2020 hit, and we didn't fly again until 2021 when we were flying for work. Well, it was my cousin who was getting married in Chicago, but we were doing the video for her wedding. So it was a mixture of work and fun. It was a very fun, so much fun to celebrate with family, but we also had like all of our equipment and everything like that. So there was an element of work to it. And I guess speaking of work, that's where this other big, huge obstacle in my travel life has been, because I am a workaholic and I've been fully self-employed for the last 5 years. And so my entire, summer schedule, fall schedule is completely dictated by the jobs that I have booked, and usually like a year and a half in advance. And one of the things that I've realized about myself, it's taken me a very long time to realize this about myself as a wedding photographer, is that I am so kind of introverted and I use up all of my social bandwidth on weddings and those jobs that I do not have the social bandwidth, the mental bandwidth, and even just like, I guess, the discipline to wrap up my work for a week to go take a vacation somewhere and then come back. It's extremely difficult. And I've had the practice a little bit of taking jobs where I've had to travel. Like I've done a wedding in Washington. I've done a couple weddings in Texas. And so I have a little bit of practice with that. And it started to get a little bit better when I had an assistant. But even then, it's just a lot of work to plan that, and it's not something that I am good at. There are plenty of people out there who are excellent at planning travel, but I am not one of them. I overthink the entire process. I overthink it from the very beginning, which is just choosing where to go and when to go. I am so afraid. We're not going to turn this into a therapy session. Let's just say like, I'm not good at it. There's a lot I struggle with it. And so it is an area of my life that I have really sacrificed for a long time, because vacations are good for you. It doesn't matter if you are afraid to travel by plane, and so you're only going to travel to places that you can either drive to or take a train to or whatever. It doesn't matter if you're even a staycation. I've done some of those, especially during 2020. Those are good too. But actually, I take that back. There is something about going away somewhere to feel something different, to discover something new, that is so important for each and every one of us. And part of it is because we all need that sense of opening our eyes up to something new. Our brains love novelty. We need novelty, which is just exposing ourselves to the things that we don't see every day. It can be so good for you to get into a new routine. Maybe you start waking up with the sun. Maybe you start a new habit. Maybe you run into people who give you a great idea because they tell you how they do it or what their life is like. And it's just like, I feel like the universe can bring you really synchronous moments when you're out traveling. And so while this trip was planned very last minute, it was it was also a little bit stressful to get everything ready to go because travel also takes a ton of work. You have to prepare your house for you to leave it, all your work, and then you step away. And then when you come back, there's all of this stuff that you hadn't been able to get to in a while. That's a challenge too. But I knew it was going to be worth it to step away because, one, I had not been to the ocean in so long, and I am a huge water person. So the idea of being able to go to the beach and just sit in front of the waves and just feel that sense of like the tide coming in, and then that feeling of being able to let some stuff go with the tide, like it was so important for me. And I have had so much weighing on my heart and my mind lately. And I'm at a turning point. It really feels like, this whole year has been a turning point. I decided about this time last year that it was time for me to stop booking weddings, that I was ready to get out of the wedding industry, which has been at the heart of my business. And I felt very lost as to where I was going to head after that. And in fact, even right now, there feels like a bit of a question mark happening. And I had to live this question mark all year long. I knew what I didn't want anymore, so I stopped booking weddings moving forward. And then I have just been putting as much energy as I have while I've still been doing tons of wedding work this year into my work, becoming a certified astrologer, getting way more into astrology, starting my TikTok channel, being able to share astrological and self-care advice with the world, and then of course coming here each week to share a bit from within with you. And there's part of me, to be honest, that was hoping that this a bit from within would take off a little bit more. And in hindsight, I think like, how could it have gotten bigger when my energy's still been so dispersed, And here's the other thing, like, as much as it would be nice to be like, you can pour all your energy into this and like success is what you're going to make it. We all have to deal with the reality of where we're at in our lives. And for me, I've been running a photography business. I've got this wild wedding schedule. I have a huge team of photographers that work for me that I've been, helping coordinate all of the weddings and my clients that they are helping me with. And this wedding season was very different. We're 2 years kind of removed from the initial event of COVID coming in, shaking everything up. And so people have changed a lot. Weddings have changed. Events have completely changed. And that was a hurdle. So that is all happening. And I can't completely step away from that because I have to finish it. I have to see it through. And I'm in the process of doing that. And then, of course, I'm in all of these classes for astrology. I'm keeping up with all of the work that I've already done with A Bit From Within. And that is so much fun, but it does take a lot of time each and every week. So there's bandwidth every week that goes into that and getting the jobs done. And then on top of that, there's where I'm at in my life and what's happening inside of my personal life and my household. And this year personally has been extremely difficult and challenging because I've been in the position of being in a relationship and navigating, success and moving forward and all of this transition with somebody who has been really, really sick for the last year. And there's been just so much with that, I don't want to speak for Dave, and I've been excited to hopefully have him on here soon. But the toll of him being sick that had on our relationship, the resentments that kind of got built up when the injury initially happened, and then in the aftermath of how it all unfolded, especially with not having a lot of answers as to what was wrong with him and how it was going to impact him forever, and me not really understanding the severity of how bad he was feeling, especially because I was so career focused and so focused on our livelihood there was just huge division that happened in that. And it really, really, really affected our relationship. And so, for a good part of this year, we spent time in couples therapy trying to figure those things out. And obviously, my relationship is extremely important to me. I love Dave very much, and I'm so proud of what we have built together over the last 6 years, that I've wanted and needed to pour a lot of my heart and energy into my relationship and into us figuring out if we can heal from this, if we can repair, if we can, heal up some of the resentment, and also just make sure to be on the path that we want to be on. One of the things that I love most about Dave and our relationship together is that we both are very, very concerned with personal growth. And we don't want to be the people tomorrow or next year that we are today, because we want to keep getting better as individuals, but also in our relationship. And the challenge that we have is that in some ways with parts of our upbringing, and I think this is true of most people in some way or another, we all have areas of our life where we have like a little bit of the short end of the stick. And when it comes to like healthy, strong, stable relationships, we both have a little bit of that short end of the stick. We didn't come into this, adulthood with secure attachments and without baggage and things like that. And so we've had to navigate that ourselves. And so part of what I was thinking about leading up to this trip was like, where am I going? Where is all of this going? My gut has told me, close up weddings. That leaves this huge question mark in my future. My relationship has been so challenging this year, and I don't know what the future holds. And so I really was hoping that when I got to that beach, that I could just sit there with this question mark, and that I wish that I could have just manifested all of the answers, like just been like, yes, please, like give me clarity. And then I could have just sat there and there all the clarity would have come. And that's not how life is. We don't get all of the answers in one moment. We can't predict the future. But I will say that after I sat on the beach, so I got two different days with the beach. The first day, just sitting there, middle of the day with the beach. And then that night, I got to just listen to those ocean waves. And the next morning, I woke up at sunrise and I walked down to the beach. We were on the Atlantic side of Florida. So facing the east, you got to see the sunrise come up over the ocean. And I snuck it out there and just put my feet in the water coming up and looked out at the gorgeous colors that were coming. And I just felt myself let go. Let go of the question marks, let go of feeling like I have to have perfection, that I have to have it all figured out. There's a lot of that pressure that I've been carrying around because I have such high expectations of myself. And I also very much like to make other people happy. And so for so long, I've been carrying around and living out the expectations of what I think other people want me to be, or what I feel like I should be in the eyes of others. I'm such a great business owner. I'm such a boss babe. I can help everyone with business. I'm, a mindful person. I deeply care about what I do with self-care and with the self-love and helping others to be inspired to find that self and to work on themselves. And so, but even with that, like even as true as that is and as authentic as there is this part of me that's like, sometimes I wonder, and I'm afraid to say this, so I know I should, that, like, am I only teaching yoga still because other people expect me to keep doing that? And so I just have so much inside of me that goes through the motions of making sure that everything is okay for everybody else. And so while I sat there on the beach, and just let go, there was this sense of clarity that came. There was this sense of clarity that unfolded in the days after being on that beach too. And the clarity came in this sense of knowing, like an inner knowing, that it's time to put my needs first. And that the only way I can do that is by owning where I'm at and being honest about what's important to me. And as I'm getting really honest and trying to figure out some things and put some things into place, I know a huge wave of change that's coming. Dave and I, in the past, the distance was honestly kind of refreshing. It helped me and him just realize how important our relationship is and where we're heading and what's important to both of us. And also kind of renewed that desire to be on the same page. And so there's just so many things that I feel really clear about right now, as well as the question marks that are still unknown. I realize that I am ready for a bit of a boring career. And I shouldn't use the word boring. I don't mean that in a bad way. I actually mean that in a very positive way, almost kind of like how I said in the beginning, like I pray for a boring flight. I'm ready for that a little bit when it comes to how I earn money. And that's just me realizing the toll. It's like being a business owner and just the career path that I have chosen since I graduated college. It's like being the shore. I just feel like I am constantly being tattered by water. It's just taken a toll on me. There's no other way to say it. And especially getting through the pandemic, being a business owner and running our entire household off of the income that comes from our business, it took a huge toll on my mental health, my sense of security, on my even just like my nervous system, like just being terrified of how we were going to keep going. It just took a huge toll on me. And so obviously I wrap all that up and get through it. And then I decide that I'm ready for something just stable. And that is my word moving into the new year. I don't think you have to pick a word. And maybe I will do a podcast episode on that in the next couple of weeks before we actually get to 2023. But I think sometimes having a word to focus on or like a vibration to feel is important. And stability, like being stable, is incredibly important to me. And this is something that I've been uncovering for the past year, my need for stability. It's honestly come the more that I've learned about my own astrological chart. I have a Taurus moon, and having a Taurus moon, the inner need, the deep need for security and stability is very important towards that feminine internal part of myself, my deepest needs and wants. And it's just kind of ironic that for so many years, I've been kind of compromising that need by being in such a changeable career, one that has, really big seasons where like you're making a lot of money and then you have no money coming in at all. And then, it depends on how much you book and your prices and who's buying what. And if a pandemic is going to happen and cancel more than half the weddings that you have and just change everything. And so I am hoping that very soon I'll be able to share that I have found a stable job that can pay my bills and give me a sense of routine. That is something I'm actively working on right now. And I'm very sure that I'm going to continue everything that I'm doing with A Bit From Within right now. That's my plan. And as far as photography goes, that's where I just have a huge question mark. It's hard to admit that, especially if any of you who are my clients are listening. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go. And again, what the trip kind of showed me is it's okay to just kind of sit in the hole and have unknowns. It's kind of like I was saying about this full moon. There is this sense of like certain things are just not totally cleared up right now, and that is okay. I am sure that it's all going to fall into place. To be honest, there is a question mark about where Dave and I want to live. And we are kind of in the process right now of trying to narrow down where our next home should be. Should it be here in Colorado? Should it be north, south, west, east? We are exploring a lot of different options right now. And I do have this very strong feeling that as we are led to the where, that a bunch more of those question marks are going to fall into place, especially around photography. And I'm sure that even if I do take a break from it for a little while, that I will get back to it, because I've just always been drawn to have that camera in my hand. So I'm sure I won't be going anywhere for too long. But it's always this time of year, honestly, that there's a sense of fatigue with the camera. You know, it's been a long season, and that's okay too. We are all allowed to get tired. We're allowed to go on vacations and not come back feeling like raring to go. And it's okay for things to take time. In fact, that's one short thing that I will share, and then I promise I'm going to wrap this all up. I have been living this out, and I want you to remember that you can live this too, that everything doesn't have to happen at once. It is okay for things to unfold. For example, this is a very kind of silly but very relevant example. We started to get our Christmas tree out, I think it was on like November 10th. And actually, I was not ready to put it up the night that Dave went out and got it, but he was so excited. He brought the tree out and he was like, we'll get to it tomorrow. And that was on a Sunday, led into a Monday, which did not happen. We did not put the Christmas tree up. So it sat there in the tree bag for a few days. And then we were like, okay, let's make a date night out of it. Let's make some Christmas cookies and hot chocolate and put up the tree and listen to the Charlie Brown Christmas vinyl and make it a whole thing. And then that night we got distracted with hanging this guitar, which just took it all out of us. And then we were like, nope, never mind, not putting up the Christmas tree. And then a couple days later, we put up the Christmas tree, but we didn't know what we wanted to do for like the ornaments and other stuff. So we just put it together. And then we were like, oh, well, we can't do any of that because I needed to flock it, like put more white fake snow on it. So then I was like, well, now I have to go find all of the fake snow and to find time to do that and need a spray bottle. And so then a couple more days passed. And finally, right before I left, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, I put a bunch of the ornaments on the tree. But even then, like we kind of sat back and looked at it and we're like, it's not quite done yet. I don't know what we need, but we need some more stuff. But of course, then Thanksgiving happened and then I went on vacation. And as soon as I got home, my first like full day back home was on Friday, so a couple days ago. And I felt all of this pressure of like, you need to get Christmas stuff done. You need to get your tree done. You need to get all your decorations up. But I had no energy. I was so exhausted from traveling and I had a bunch of work to get to. And I was really, really low energy. And I hate that feeling. I'm not used to it. It's not normal for me, but it was happening. And so I didn't get to it. And then again, yesterday I felt a sense of guilt with that, but we were out of the house the entire day running some really important errands. And so it didn't happen then. It didn't happen when I got home. And, you know, and I told myself, you know what? This is on your mind, but it is going to get done. Things will fall into place. It's going to happen when it's meant to be. And my approach for today, I had a bunch of obligations in the back of my mind. And I told myself, you can plan those. You can write them down on a to-do list. You can plan them for anytime you want. And in fact, if they happen today, great. But all I wanted for myself today is for one thing to lead to the next thing. So when I woke up this morning, I took the dog out. And when I took the dog back in, that led me to getting him a treat, which led me to cleaning up the counter, which led me to doing some dishes, which led me to making some breakfast and then cleaning the kitchen again, which led me to, just thing after thing. It just kind of unfolded. And tonight, by the time I got to tonight, Dave was making dinner and I decided to do some wrapping of presents that we've already gotten. And because I wanted to put them under the tree, that got me kind of more motivated to get the tree skirt out and add a couple extra bulbs to it. And it just all fell into place. And so now I feel like our Christmas tree is perfect for this year. It's every year I like to do it a little bit differently. That is that mutable part of me. Last year we did an all silver and gold tree. And then the year before that we did like the very traditional like reds and greens with I think a little bit of gold that year. Or maybe we did red and gold. Anyway, we do it different every single year. And this year I wanted to do a Celtics themed tree. It's kind of silly, but every year I buy us a Celtics ornament. So now we have like, I think 6 Celtics ornaments. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to do a Celtics tree. I want it to be like green and white candy canes and green and silver bulbs. And I have like these like silver snowflake garland. And then I bought some like white ball garland. And so that's what we did. We did a Celtics tree. It's all green, different kinds of shades of green, like some light green, some kind of dark emerald green, and then some like bright Celtic green, and then silver and white as well. And it's just so pretty. It's really fun. We do have like a checkered like red and black tree skirt. So there is a red and green theme too. And it felt so fun. It all came together in perfect timing. So just that is the thing you can think of is just like it may take you literally almost an entire month to get something done. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you are a person who, like me, feels a lot of pressure just to get something done right away or do something from start to finish really fast, sometimes things don't work out like that. And especially while Mars is in retrograde. That's the astrologer in me coming back just to remind you, like, if some things feel like they're kind of going backwards right now, just let them. Don't be in such a hurry. Don't beat yourself up. That's the last thing that you need. Be kind to yourself and just let things happen as they're supposed to. So with that, I don't even know if this podcast had a really great big message or if all of these little personal stories were inspiring or helpful to you. I sure hope that they were. And I want to say thank you for letting me share a little bit from within with you. If you ever feel compelled to share back with me just whatever part of you that this connected to, please know that I am always open for that. You can reach out to me at a bit from within at FeliciaMarty.com. You can contact me through my website, abitfromwithin.com, or even like DM me on social media. I would just love to connect with you in any way that you feel that you might want to connect. So with that said, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode. We're going to end as we do every single week with a card drawing. And I'm actually going to use the Star Codes Astro Oracle, which has been a new deck that I got that I've been in love with. It has all these different astrology-related cards, so like each of the zodiac signs, the planets, and then aspects, and a bunch of other stuff. So this Oracle deck is by Heather Roan Robbins. I'm going to shuffle these cards and see how the universe wants to contribute to today's conversation. Solar flares. The word associated with solar flares is activate. Change is in the air. A flare of energy supports your work. The mood is restless, sparky, revolutionary, and curious. That sounds a lot like Gemini, by the way. People are hungry for change. It's not the time to be quiet, but to be fast on your feet. When the sun is storming, our social and political world activates, revolutionary change manifests, and trees grow faster in the forest. Aim carefully because a solar flare brings momentum, not thoughtfulness, that you have to provide. A calm, metaphysical perspective may not be easy, but you can bring that in to create balance and longevity. When you build during a solar flare may be hot and fervent, but not necessarily long-lived. To turn an idea or a love affair into something permanent, like a business plan or a partnership, it will take conscious effort. The gift is the sun is sending extra voltage and inspiration your way, so use it wisely. Feel the heat in the situation, the passion in the people involved, then balance that fire by adding water's compassion, the thoughtfulness of air, and the logistics of earth to turn that inspiration into reality. Well, isn't that just perfect? I'm sitting here talking about change and motivation and all of that energy, and I think it's a beautiful reminder that it does take work. And even when you do have that momentum figured out, like, you have to be willing to bring in the pieces that will create and bring balance to it, because that's what you need in order to make something long lasting. I hope this is giving you plenty to think about. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and I hope you tune in again soon. Until next time.